This is Mrs. Naslund, and today we'll be doing Unit 12, Lesson 1, Length. Our learning objectives, or learning targets today are, I can apply knowledge of customary units of length and distance, and I can understand fractions of units of length and distance. The vocab we'll be talking about today are inch, foot, yard, and mile. Let's go ahead and get started. First, we're going to look at this inchworm. It says the inchworm gets its name because its method of crawling helps it move forward an inch at a time. The line segment is 1 inch, or this line segment right here is 1 inch long. Hold up your two fingers 1 inch apart and name an object that's about that long. And I'm sure you can come up with many of them, but the example that I always think of is like a small paper clip is about an inch long. Now, on a different hand, a foot is 12 of those inches put together. So if you look at this sheet of paper, or this little sheet here, these are each inches, and there's 12 of them, and they've been folded just to make it fit on the page. And I want you to spread your hands about 12 inches apart, and I want you to name an object that would be about that many length apart. And I often think like a book, an open book would be one, or a file folder would be another example of something that's about 12 inches or 1 foot long. All right. Now, many years ago, people considered a distance of 1 foot to be the length of a person's actual foot. So they would literally count how many feet, or they would take their feet and they'd count how many steps it would take to get somewhere, and then they'd say that's how many foot it was. But if I took my foot and I compared it to your feet, and we found the biggest foot and the smallest foot in the class, would they all actually be a foot long? And the answer is no. Everyone's foot's a different size, so everyone would get a different answer, and it wouldn't work to use it as an actual tool for measurement. Number 4 says 1 yard is equal to 3 feet, okay, or 36 inches. So 3 feet, remember we said 1 foot was 12 inches, so if I have 3 feet, 12 times 3 is going to give me 36 inches. How many 6 inches lengths are there in 1 yard? So if we know that there's 36 inches in a yard, and we want to know how many 6 inches fit in there, we're just going to do a division problem here. Think 36 divided by 6, how many times does it go in? And the answer is it goes in 6 times. Okay, so it's about 6 6-inch lengths. All right, the last problem on this page says the longer distances are measured in miles. 1 mile is equal to 5,280 feet, or 1,760 yards. Why are feet and yards not used as often as miles when describing long distances? It's a great question. Why don't you pause the video and think about why they aren't used? All right, and the answer is because the numbers would be huge, right? A lot of these numbers would be too large, it'd be too hard to understand. So instead of doing feet or yards, we use the bigger distance, which in our US customary system is miles. All right, next we're going to look at fractions of length units. So first off, we know that 1 foot equals 12 inches. Okay, so 1 foot is 12 inches. And this 6-inch ruler shows half a foot. So they couldn't fit the whole 12-inch ruler on here, so they split it in half. So this is half of a foot. It says how many inches are between 0 and the star? So we can count 1, 2, 3, there are 4 inches between 0 and the star. Oops, I'm showing all my answers. There's 4 inches between 0 and the star. Now it says use the fractions in simplest form to complete the equations. So we know that 1 inch is the same as, we know that there are 12 inches in 1 foot. So in here it wants us to write it as an equation. So in this case we only have 1 inch of the 12. So we're going to write that as a fraction. We're going to say 1 inch over 12 inches is foot. So 1 inch equals 1/12 of a foot. Now, what if we have 3 inches? And the same thing works. We know that it's a fraction. We know the bottom number has to be 12 because we know there's 12 feet. But this time, instead of just having 1 inch, we have 3 inches. So our numerator is going to be a 3, and our denominator is going to be a 12. And you might be saying, well, Mrs. Naslund, the answer says it's 1/4. But remember, when we write this out, it also wants it in simplest form. So I'm going to think, okay, how can I bring these to simplest form? And remember, to simplify fractions, we'd have to divide the top and the bottom by the same number. And in this case, I'm going to divide both of them by 3. So if I divide 3 divided by 3, I get 1. And 12 divided by 3, I get 4. So we end up with 1/4. All right, this one, same thing, it's 4 inches, and we want to know how many feet. So I'm going to say it's 4 inches over 12. But I'm not done yet because it's going to want it in simplest form. So I'm going to have to divide both of them by 4, right? And when I do that, I'm going to end up with 1 over 3, or 1/3. So 4 inches is 1/3 of a foot. Let's check and see if we're right. All right. Now, when we move on to number 10, we're looking at how many feet are in a yard. And if we look back, we'll remember down here it says a yard is equal to 3 feet, or 36 inches. So we got to remember that 1 yard is equal to 3 feet, or 36 inches. So we know that 1 yard is equal to 3 feet, but this is only 1 foot. So we're comparing 1 foot to the yard. So we want to figure out what fraction that would be, and it would end up being 1/3 of a yard, right? So now we want to know what 2 feet would be. So instead of it being 1 over 3, now we're going to get 2/3 of a yard, all right? Now, this next part is having us look at these rulers, and let's read the directions. It says, the short marks between the whole inch marks represent the fractional parts. For each ruler below, what fraction of an inch is marked between the whole numbers? What measurement does this star show? So if we look at here, first we want to know what fraction it is between these two parts. And when I look at that, we know that it is halfway in between. So our fraction is it's halfway in between these two, but then we want to actually mark what measurement it is. So we've got 1, 2 inches, and a half. So we have 1/2 inch and 2.5 inches. All right, let's look at number 13. First, I want you to decide between 5 and 6 what fraction this star is at. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4 total spots, and what fraction is it there? If you said 1/4, great job. Now we've got to label it as the ruler as a whole. So we're 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 inches over and 1/4. So it should be 5 1/4 inches total. Awesome. Now in this one, let's count our spaces. Again, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 out of 6, 7, 8. So it's 5/8 of a way between 3 and 4. And then we count our inches. We've got 1, 2, 3 inches. So I'm going to label first that it was 5/8 inches, or sorry, 1/8. They're in 1/8 increments, but it was 5/8 all the way over there, right? Because we went 5 spaces of the 8. So it'd be 3 and 5/8 for the total amounts. All right, last question. It says some rulers have shorter marks halfway between the 1/8 marks. What fraction of an inch would these marks be? So up here, we had these 1/8 marks. But what they're saying is that some rulers actually put another line between each one. And I don't have a very thin marker tip, but if I put another line between each of these, how many lines would I have? And if we counted them all, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. They'd be a little space like this would be 1/16 of that space. Okay, or 16ths. All right. All right, now on this page, it says estimate the length of each line segment, then measure to the nearest 1/8 of an inch. So I look at this and you get to decide, and I'm going to count out, I'm going to estimate first. I'm going to say 1, 2, 3, 3/4, maybe 1/4 of an inch, something like that. So I'm just going to do an estimate, and I'm going to take my ruler and actually measure it and see. So start right at the 0 here, and I am going to get that it's about 3 1/2 inches. So again, I count my inches: 1, 2, 3 1/2 inches. So I get about 3 1/2 inches. All right, go ahead and estimate this one on your own and see what you think. All right, let's see. We'll go ahead and measure it here, and we have, it's about 4 1/2 inches, maybe a little bit less, but 4 1/2 inches is the actual amount. So again, I just count over 1, 2, 3, 4, and about 1/2 an inch. Now, you'll also be asked to draw some line segments. So if I come down here, and let's look at number 21. All right, and they want me to actually draw the length. So they want 3 3/8 inches. So I'm going to start, and I'm going to figure out what 3/8 is first. I know what 3 inches, 1, 2, 3, but 3/8. So my 8s are these little bigger lines. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So 3/8 of that, I'm going to count over 3 spots. 1, 2, 3 is right about here. So 3 3/8. I'm going to go from the beginning of my ruler till there. Let's try one more together here. All right, now for this one, it says 1 3/4. So I'm going to find my 3/4 spot. I know it's going to be after 1, and I count it up into 4 sections. 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's the little bigger line. So 3/4 of those is going to be 1, 2, 3. It's going to go right about here. And I want 1 3/4. So I'm going to draw it all the way back to the beginning of my ruler. So there we go. That is a 1 3/4 inch line. So in this unit, we talked about measuring length in our customary system. We talked about inches and foot and yards. And then we got to practice reading rulers and then also measuring with rulers. You'll continue your practice on your homework and remembering today. Great work.